No, you gotta feed me on this one, Michael, because I'll say cut.
No, there's no redos. There's one take.
I know. Okay. Make sure I ain't got chocolate in my face. Hey, little boy. I ain't got time.
So he doesn't realize we're already rolling here. This is the real George South.
You got that right.
Sometimes when you're on the road and you meet these wrestlers, you get to know a little bit about them. But I've had the benefit of knowing George South for close to 10 years now. Mm-hmm. George has been our trainer here at High Spots. We have a wrestling school, and every Tuesday night, like clockwork, George gets here and he passes on all the knowledge that he's learned throughout his entire career. George, as many of you may have known or not known, recently released a book.
Yep.
On cue.
That's it.
That we have now started selling here at High Spots. And what I'd like to do to promote this book is introduce everybody to the George South that I've known, the real George South. Every week we'll kind of touch on a little different story. This week it's not going to be the most, it's not going to be the funniest story. It's not going to be the most exciting story. It's a very serious, sad subject.
Yeah.
It was the passing of your good friend, Brad Armstrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of people may not know George had the opportunity. He was asked by Brad Armstrong's wife to speak at his funeral. And I know there's a lot of people out there that really love Brad, the wrestler, but they didn't know a lot about him. I was hoping that you could share some of the memories that you had of Brad, and specifically maybe some information about the funeral that you just attended.
Yeah, you know, old-timers used to say, and especially to me, that when you're done in professional wrestling, if you have 5 good friends, you know, on one hand, you did good. And I probably got 3. But Brad Armstrong was probably my very best friend. You know, in professional wrestling, you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to have close friends. But Brad, in 1983, I shared at the funeral. I walked in Techwood Drive Studio in Atlanta, Georgia for World Championship Wrestling. First TV taping ever. The second person I met that day was Brad Armstrong. That was late 82, early 83. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I shared yesterday at the funeral that he, at that time, Ted and Jerry Oaks had a gym in Columbus, Georgia that all the boys went to. And Ted loved this Ted Oaks sweatshirt. And I could just picture him standing there in it. We become friends that day. I was already a big mark for Bullet, Bob Armstrong, through the magazines and stuff like that. And he was actually there that day too. But to meet Brad, I had a picture made with him that day. And I'm so glad now that I was able to have a picture made with him. I still have that picture hanging up at the house. Just a great guy. And I know when someone passes, that everybody says something good about him, and they don't know if it's real or not. But I loved him. I don't say that just to throw it out there, but he was a great guy. Unbelievable in the ring. Just being able to have the opportunity when his wife asked me to speak. I love talking, as everybody knows me, knows, Michael, but I didn't know how I would do yesterday. I was strong going down. I drove all the way to Atlanta, and several times wanted to turn around and come back. But when I saw his daughter, that was tough. She's 11 years old, just the light of his life, and looks just like him. And that was hard for me, to spend time with her and just know what she's going to be facing. So with all that, I am so thankful, and I have thanked Mark James, who did my book, several times today, that we finished it. There's a chapter, and probably a chapter and a half, of just my relationship with Brad. And I was so glad that I was able to give him this book. His wife, Lori, shared with me yesterday that he had a favorite recliner, and he had a little table that he kept his stuff on, and she said his book stayed on that table. And she was encouraging me yesterday. She said if you came over to borrow a cup of sugar, he'd show you his book. So that was pretty neat. So just a great guy. You know, my preacher here in Charlotte, he said, give me one word, George, before you go to Atlanta, what described you and Brad in the ring. And I said, you know, it was a dance. And that's the only word I could come up with. And so before I left, he said, I want to drop something off. So he brought me this little card, and he said, it was so neat, the card said that when Fred Astaire, that famous dancer, died, that Ginger Rogers, his dance partner and longtime friend, simply said that there's nobody left to dance with. and that's exactly how I feel right now. There'll be many, many more matches, but with Brad, there'll never be no more like that. I always would tell whoever show it was that I didn't want a time limit with him, because with Brad, everything else stopped, Michael, the minute I locked up with him. And I know a lot of the older guys would understand that, but I miss him already. I've had people Facebook me and say, what's got into you? You know, you're usually yelling at somebody or complaining or fussing. And now we're seeing a side of you. And I just simply told them I ain't Superman, Michael. And I've been around death all my life, Michael, with my parents at a young age. It's all in the book. And losing a brother last year. But I didn't even cry then. But, buddy, man, this has got me. But he just was a great guy. Got to be around all of his brothers. I told his mother yesterday, and it's in the book, I said, what did you feed those boys? And she said, why? I said, because every one of them could work. Every one of them, Michael. I'm probably one of the few guys that had the privilege. I told Bullet that everybody in his family's beat me. Every one of them kids have beat me. So that was kind of a neat honor. Just a neat thing. I actually saw Steve Armstrong yesterday, who was probably one of my second favorite Armstrongs, and he's got 2 sons. It was just amazing. He's got 2 sons coming up. They're 18, and I was ready to bring them back to Charlotte and put them right in our training center. So just a lot of great stories about him. I could talk about Brad forever. He just, you know, Brad's bad match was still unbelievable. I never thought he had a bad match. There's probably 2 guys in professional wrestling that I think never had a bad match, and he was right up there with it. I mean, he just was just unbelievable. So,
aside from your personal relationship with Brad, and I know how much you loved him, when you talked about us putting a DVD together for you guys to accompany this book, when you can kind of sell the matches that you're most proud of, and the first one, and you said the one that has to be on there is Brad Armstrong. So I know how much it means to you, and I'm sorry for your loss on a personal level, and I'm sorry for the loss for the Armstrong family. And I want all the fans to get to know George South by the end of this series. We're going to come here each and every week. We're going to do one of these right before our training every Tuesday night and let you know about George's book. And for those of you that purchase the book through High Spots this week, we're also going to throw in a copy of the Boogie Woogie Front Yard Tour that we filmed several years ago, which is actually a show that George had in the front yard of his house.
Yeah, first one ever.
And what I think is beautiful about it is you really get to see the George South that we've known for years, just with the guard down and just kind of seeing the pressures that go on with.
Yeah, you know, most people, and you know, Michael, being around all of us, most people think that we're not, most of us ain't normal, but they think that you don't yell at the kids. They think that you don't have bills due. They just put you almost on a pedestal. But what I love seeing people is, man, this has been a job that I've loved for 32 years, and but we're still human. And we hurt when we lose one of our loved ones, as I did with Brad. I mean, it hurts, buddy.
It does. So we'll be back with you next week with another edition of George South.